My name is Brent Baum, and I am not only your favorite contrarian, I'm the only contrarian. And I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And welcome back to another one of my vlogs, and I'm here to discuss the 76ers. The Sixers actually have had a good start to the season. They're 500, 6-6, and they're ahead of the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are 6-7. So currently, right now, if the playoffs started, the Cavs would not even be in the playoffs, and the Sixers would have the 7th seed. Now, we all know, obviously, Isaiah Thomas has not come back to play for the Cavs, so it's a little premature, but it's a good start for the Sixers. It really is. They had a tough matchup against the Golden State Warriors, losing 135 to 114 at Golden State against the world champions. But I would say they hung in that game through most of the first half. And then toward the third quarter, I would say things started to fall apart for the Sixers. And then obviously the fourth quarter, at that point in time, the game was over. But I would say the Sixers are definitely promising. Ben Simmons, he just changes the whole spectrum for the Sixers. You see Embiid, he's getting better. Even you look at Robert Covington. Robert Covington has been the unsung hero. This year, he's averaging 15 points, 5 rebounds, shooting almost over 50%. He's shooting 48% this year from 3, and he's averaging over 3.5 threes per game. That's super impressive for Robert Covington. I know last year, start off the season, he struggled a bit. Fans were getting on his case, but Ben Simmons, he just does a great job of allowing the players to space the floor. And when you have a player, a point forward, point guard like a Ben Simmons, you need to surround them by shooters. And as you see this year with Redick, with Covington, with Dario Saric, they've been a lot better. And speaking of Dario Saric, I think it was great for them to move Dario Saric into the starting lineup. You see he's been playing a lot better in the starting lineup. He's averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds now, just making just under 2 threes per game. He's playing a lot better. You saw last year when he started to pick things up, he was getting playing time. He needs to get playing time. He's not just this guy that should come off the bench and play 20 minutes. He needs to play at least, I would say, 30 minutes on average to really help this team more than anything. And you look at Ben Simmons through 12 games, averaging just under 8, averaging 17 points, 10 rebounds, just under 8 assists. Ben Simmons, as you know, at this point in time, he looks like the Rookie of the Year. I know at the start of the season I said that it's going to really be between Ben Simmons, Lonzo Ball. I still think they both will win Rookie of the Year, co-Rookie of the Year. First time since, I believe, 95, when Grant Hill and Jason Kidd, they won co-Rookie of the Year. Only time that's been done. But I think it can happen. If you saw Lonzo Ball, he was the first player, the youngest player to get a triple-double in a single game at the age of 20. So I know a lot of people say, oh, Lonzo, every time Lonzo has a bad game, people get on Lonzo Ball, but Lonzo Ball is a star. He's going to be in this league for years to come. It doesn't matter what LeVar says or any type of criticism that Lonzo Ball gets. He's going to be a star. But I'm going back to the Sixers. You look at how well Simmons is playing, and you look at Embiid. Through 27 minutes, Embiid is averaging 18 points, 10 rebounds, I think 1.5 blocks, and he's just playing a good game. He's just playing very, very well in the 27 minutes with that minute restriction. But he needs the minute restriction. He needs it. I think he still needs it just because you don't want him to get hurt. And right now, the Sixers, they are not in win mode now. They're still in rebuild mode. We need to see if Embiid can last playing 27 minutes. I would say at least, I'll give him 30 games. 30 games, that's fair. If he can make it through 30 games without being hurt, then bump up his minutes per game to, I would say, 35. He's capable of it. Another player that I do want to talk about, clearly the Sixers have been dealing with injuries. You saw what happened with Jared Bayless. He went down, a wrist injury. And then Markelle Fultz. I know that Markelle Fultz is one of those names that when people talk about him, people look at him as being maybe the next Kyrie Irving, superstar player, can't miss player. Hence the reason why the Sixers traded up a draft pick to get him, which I was strongly against, as many of you know. But Markelle Fultz, It's not his fault. I think the Sixers rushed him a bit with a shoulder injury. They kept playing him through it. He saw his free throw line. I mean, at the free throw line, he was shooting like you didn't know what he was doing. He was just experimenting with free throw shots like he was Shaquille O'Neal or Tristan Thompson. It's like he was trying to learn how to shoot with his left hand. So it's one of those things where I just don't quite understand why they rushed it. And I think now Brian Colangelo and the organization has found out that it was not a good idea to rush him back onto the court, and that this is a process. You have to trust the process. No pun intended. Because that's what life is about. It's about trusting the process, going through the process of life before you have success, and going through barriers. So with Markelle Fultz, he has a shoulder injury. Fortunately, there's no structural damage. He should be back, I would say, probably in about a month or two. They said 3 weeks. Who knows? They might be 2 months. It might take some time. But the big reason with Markelle Fultz is, see, as good as Markelle Fultz might be, I just don't think he was, without a doubt, the guy you draft. Number 1 overall. I said that with that pick, with the third pick, they could have easily got Jason Tatum. They could have got Dennis Smith Jr. They could have got the other kid, Malik Monk. I'm big on Malik Monk, as you all know. They could have got other players. They didn't have to trade up. But, hey, Markelle Fultz is a guy they look at as being one of the futures of this team. He's supposed to be a crucial part of the Feds. But he hasn't played so far. That's how I'm looking at it. If it were me, I would have drafted Lonzo Ball. I still would have drafted Lonzo. I would have drafted Lonzo Ball with the first overall pick. LeVar would have had to make it work. He would have to make it work. I know you said LA, that all 3 of his sons, Melo, Jello, and Lonzo are all going to be in LA. I get that. But still, I would have drafted him regardless. Because I think that Lonzo's going to be a better player than Fultz. And I think Lonzo and Simmons could have worked together. But that's not the point. Going back to the Sixers, another player I want to talk about is Jahlil Okafor. It's an enigma. It's an enigma what the Sixers are doing with Jahlil Okafor. He has only played in 2 games out of the 12 this season. He played in 1 game where he stepped in for Embiid, who was on his rest, and he got 10 points, 9 rebounds, and a block. He looks a lot more trimmer. He's on that vegetarian diet. He looked good out there. But for some reason, the Sixers had this idea that he's not part of the process. And I get that. In this day and age, it's very hard to play with 2 bigs. Look at the Pelicans. It's working out with the Pelicans with Cousins and Anthony Davis. But it's very rare nowadays. But with those 2 guys, that's like they're rare breeds because they can play the 4 and the 5 and the 3 interchangeably. You see how Cousins, he brings up the ball for the Pelicans at times, and Anthony Davis, former point guard, so it worked for them. And at this point in time, you just trade Joel Okafor. I think they can get a draft pick out of him, a first-round draft pick. I wouldn't trade him for a player. I would trade him for a draft pick. Now, if it were my organization, I was Brian Colangelo, I wouldn't even trade him. I would start Embiid and Okafor together. I would put Okafor at the 4. They can, in fact, use them interchangeably. They can both play the 4 and the 5, Embiid and Okafor together. Because Okafor has a lot of offensive skills. He has some deficiencies on defense, but he can play very well offensively. He has great footwork. He has good back to the basket, low post offense, and I really believe that with his ability to also hit a mid-range jump shot, him and Embiid can play well together in this league. They can. And Embiid can make up for Okafor's defensive deficiencies. But clearly at this point, that's not going to happen. It's that simple. So Okafor will probably end up being traded, which I understand. Hopefully they can get a draft pick. But the main reason why I would say they're not playing, and the main reason why he's only played 25 minutes, is that the Sixers don't want to risk him getting hurt at this point. They say a lot of teams are going to be interested in him. They look at him as a whole, as a guy that they can play down the stretch and use him to help rebuild a team. Because he's not hurt. You saw what he did at Duke for that 1 year. So teams already know what he can bring to the table and that he has value. But it's just really interesting when you look at this whole process and you look at the Sixers and what they have done. Some of these draft picks that were part of the Sam Hinkie era are not even playing right now. They're barely playing. Just look at Michael Carter-Williams. You're probably wondering, well, where is Michael Carter-Williams? Who is he playing for now? Well, he played for the Bucks, the Bulls. He's with the Hornets now. The Hornets. He played the other night. He's not playing much. I still think Carter-Williams has value. But that's one of the guys that Sam Hinkie traded for. He got him drafted 11 overall. And you look at Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel, he's not even the backup center anymore in Dallas. He's the third string center. And this is a guy who was once named Gatorade High School Player of the Year. Not Gatorade High School Player of the Year. He was ranked the #1 high school player. I know that much. And he's not playing right now. Dallas apparently has given up on the guy. And then on top of that, you look at Okafor, who was a 3rd overall pick. Noel was 6th overall. Okafor is 3rd overall. These are lottery picks who are not playing. They're not playing. They're just not part of the process. And that might have hurt their career. Sure, you want to collect assets. You want to collect these pieces. But now these pieces who were once considered gems and franchise-building players aren't playing right now. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens with the Sixers and what happens with Okafor. But I would say Okafor, it is a shock for many people. Okafor has not been traded. I think Okafor will probably be traded by January. That's my guess. They're just going to leave him on the bench. And just, I think the main thing that might have hurt Okafor is when he said it was a jinx that he got drafted by the Sixers. I don't think he ever really wanted to be here. I'm going to take a guess. It appears like he never really wanted to be here. I wanted Okafor. I thought Okafor could be a very good player. I still think he can be a very good player. He just needs to get playing time. He needs to get playing time. But tonight, the Sixers, they do play against the Los Angeles Clippers to continue their road trip. They play tonight at 10:30. It should be a good matchup. I think against the Clippers, of course, you're dealing with DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin. That's their team now, Chris Paul. So Blake Griffin pretty much does everything for that team now. He plays everywhere. He brings up the ball at times. I see him playing. He plays in the post. He plays on the perimeter. He does a little bit of everything. And then, of course, DeAndre Jordan, still a little bit of Lob City. You see Blake Griffin throwing him some oops. So it should be a good game. I'm looking forward to that game. I think the Sixers actually have a chance of winning that game. They've been pretty competitive throughout the 12 games. So, yeah, it should be a good game more than anything. But the last thing I want to leave you guys on is don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Markelle Fultz does not play until February. Don't be surprised. Because we all know how much this process and taking time, allowing these players to fully heal, take. So that's all I want you guys to leave with. And as I mentioned before, there's a couple guys who I said earlier in the year who I thought I would have drafted over Markelle Fultz. And I want you to remember these guys' names. The guys who I would have drafted over Markelle Fultz is Lonzo Ball, Dennis Smith Jr., Malik Monk, and there's this one other guy I can't think of right now. I know there's one other guy that I would have drafted over him. But yeah, I think those are my guys. Those are the guys I would have drafted over him. And don't be surprised if those guys all end up being better than him. So that's all I need to say. That's all I have to say about that. And remember, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. I rest my case.